everyone, and welcome to week 3 in Perspective of the Social Sciences. So we're trundling right along in our course. We finished the first learning block, on to our second. For this week, you'll have 4 assignments. You need to do a short answer on implicit and explicit biases. Your discussion posting is going to be talking about advertising appeals. And your third thing is another short answer on the cultural and social forces that impact our behavior. And finally, number 4, you're going to be completing a graphic organizer on some rather unusual forms of marriages, unusual for us, that is. All right, so then I'm going to go back through the assignments and just give you a little more detail on how they should be completed and some tips for getting the best score possible. All right, so for the first one, your short answer on explicit and implicit biases. Please, of course, as usual, read through all the material because you might need to use some of the course material to give examples of particularly implicit bias. To give an example of an explicit bias, it's fairly obvious because you're conscious of it. You might be able to recognize them in yourself. You might be, you can see them in other people. Implicit biases, that means that someone is not conscious of it, that they stay away from someone or something or act in a certain negative way towards someone. But they don't really recognize why. So it's much easier to see that in somebody else. So maybe certain people don't sit with certain people in public transportation, or they cross over to the other side of the road. They don't go to a certain part of the city. In a classroom, people may interact in a certain way that you notice that maybe it displays an implicit bias, some kind of issue people have with other groups that they don't consciously recognize. So remember that for these short answer assignments, take a look at the rubric because although I love for you guys to write things that you're interested in, I grade according to the rubric standard. So one important thing is to respond directly to the prompt. So for this question, you need to give example of each type of bias. You need to explain why recognizing biases are important. And then you need to talk about how they can influence our behavior. So be sure to answer each question very directly and specifically so you can get the most points. All right, so for your discussion posting, now everyone has a chance to discuss the marketing angle. We all are very well aware of how ads try to appeal to us. You've got some great articles here to talk about the research, some kind of marketing research for you about the top appeals and the different ways that advertisers try to get us to buy their products. A large part of this is by playing on our biases and also playing on things that are not fully conscious in us, getting us to do things without even us being aware of it. So in your discussion posting, you're going to have to do, answer 2 different prompts. And once again, respond to them very directly. You can talk about other things as well, but please get those responses in there so you can get points for them. Talk about how, pick one ad that you chose and talk about how it made you feel looking at it. What emotions did you feel? Were you shocked? What was your reaction? And then importantly, number 2, what kind of appeal did it make? Please use the course material here to talk about what kind of appeal. And then also be sure to explain why, according to who you are, this particular type of appeal might have worked. So how did this advertiser appeal to your particular identity, your belongingness to a group or to a culture? All right. For the third assignment, the next short answer assignment, talking about the cultural and social forces that impact our behavior. Once again, here what you're trying to do is really display to me you've done the course material. So you need to talk about the different forces that influence behavior. So just, draw right from the course materials here. And then be sure to answer directly to the other prompts. Talk about how specifically media and ads can influence our behavior. Finally, for the graphic organizer, here you guys get a chance to talk a little bit more about marriage. That was very popular as a discussion topic that I just finished correcting for this week. And so you've got an example of 3 different types of marriage that we don't find in American society: polyandry, something called walking marriages, and arranged marriages. And the point of this exercise is really to help you take a step back and try to become more objective and not react in sort of a knee-jerk way. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, that's weird, to a new kind of social and cultural institution. So you need to fill out this chart. Read the directions very carefully. It's kind of a 3-step process. So the first step, you're going to be, identifying your own bias. So I would advise there's 3 columns in the chart. Put each different type of marriage at the top: polyandry, walking marriage, arranged marriage, and kind of gauge your initial reaction to each. Weird, or oh, interesting. And try to write down what makes you kind of think the situation is weird or interesting. And then that will be your bias. That's sort of your own particular perspective based on your culture. That bias is informing your reaction. So that should be in the first column, trying to see how you feel, what kind of bias you have, what problem you may have with each type of these types of marriage. Second part is trying to take a step back and think, well, maybe weird to me, but let's take a look at the objective advantages and disadvantages of each of these different types of marriage. So that's the next section there. Students seem to have less of a problem with that. And then finally, and this is preparing you for the some work you're going to be doing on your final project, is you have to come up with a question for research. And you'll notice that we've been doing this again and again, just trying to show how social science research can be used to learn more about a topic that we don't know much about. So based on some of the things that you thought were interesting, or even the advantages and disadvantages about these different types of marriage, come up with a question that could be researched, that would end up either furthering our knowledge of these types of marriage, or perhaps even improving these marriages or improving the society that they take place in. Okay, so a researchable type of question. Right, I think that might be enough for this week. If you guys have further questions on the assignments, please feel free to email me, and happy working.